Thank you for staying with us after this powerful documentary. I think we all need a moment to catch our breath and process what we have just seen. No Other Land is not an easy movie to watch, and it really stays with you. And it's a vital story about impunity and injustice in the West Bank. My name is Juliette Delacroix. I'm the International Affairs Advisor at the Belgian Socialist Party, and I'm honored to moderate this panel tonight. We have three great speakers who will bring political insights and lived experience to this discussion. Bassel Adra, we just saw you in the film, of course. You're a Palestinian activist, journalist, and Oscar-winning filmmaker. Your courage has brought global attention to what is happening in Masafer Yatta. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
I want to also briefly acknowledge your co-director, Yuval Abraham, who unfortunately could not be with us tonight. But your solidarity and partnership in the film is truly inspirational, especially in these dark times. Kati Piri, you're a member of the Dutch Parliament, former member of the European Parliament, and you have consistently called for stronger action in support of Palestine and for more sanctions against the Israeli government. So it's great to have you with us for this conversation. Evin Insir, you're a member of the European Parliament. You also have been very vocal on this issue at the EU level, and you have traveled to the region many times. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. So we will have around 30 minutes together. We'll start with a panel discussion, and then we'll turn to you in the audience for a Q&A. So as we go along, don't hesitate to already note down and think about the questions that you want to ask our panelists, because we want this to be as engaging and open as possible. Without further ado, I would like to start by exploring your immediate reactions to the film. So, Kati, can you tell us what struck you most about this documentary?
Well, to be honest, thank you for making this documentary. I know for you it's your life. It's and imagine only, you know, what we are feeling in 1.5 hours is something you and your family and your friends and your people have to go through for decades. And I think what didn't struck me in the movie, but I think we all felt every time we saw the bulldozers coming and destroying in 5 seconds someone's house, someone's security, someone's safety. I think that was very, well, it made it very vivid about what is happening. And in the movie, you also made us sometimes smile. When you said to Yuval that he's very enthusiastic, I think we all recognize that, right? I think many of us have been here to the West Bank, and I think we all come back with the feeling of injustice and something needs to be done. And then, of course, for us, life goes on, and sometimes you're very then busy with other stuff. And this is exactly, I think, one of the reasons that we're not allowed to look away any longer. And thank you for reminding us with this very powerful documentary.
Thank you. It really speaks to the emotional weight of the film, of course. And Bassel, I want to come back to a moment at the beginning of the movie that was also very moving. When you said, I started filming when we started to end. Can you explain to us what you mean by that?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming, for the organizers of this event. I mean, I said this in the beginning, so people can see what I'm talking about, and they saw tonight demolitions of our homes, schools, water pipes, electricity, our erasing that Israel started it in the Nakba 1948. This is just ongoing Nakba that is never stopped. But I want to tell people here, as I know there are politicians, that I'm really tonight coming with a heavy heart, with a broken heart. On July 28, an Israeli criminal settler shot to death in cold blood my friend, my best friend. He was like a brother to me, Auda Hadalin, from the village of Al Khair in Masafir Yatta. Auda was a father, was a teacher, he was an amazing activist who hosted everybody from United States, from Europe, who would come in solidarity to stand with us in Masafir Yatta. This crime was filmed almost by 20 video, included Auda was filming his own death. He was holding his 3-year-old son by hand and holding his phone with the other hand, filming the settlers digging with a bulldozer his own property, his own land. And one of the settlers took on like his pistol, start to shoot around. And one of the bullets he aimed to Auda's heart, he shot him, leaving him dead. Then these criminal soldiers brought, just a minute after Auda was shot, bring this settler to the family. This settler pointed at 5 of Auda's brothers, cousins, and family members, and they were abducted for 3 nights in a row. Israeli occupation forces has invaded the community, arresting 20 people from Auda's family, relatives, brothers, and they prevented the family from mourning him. They kept his body for 11 days illegally, and only after that, after the family went to the court, they were able to release his body, after his mother went in a hunger strike with other 60 women from the community of Al Khair. And even in the funeral day, it was very hard for me to go to attend to this funeral. I have to drive 1 hour and half in the desert in order to attend to the funeral of my friend and to see him for the last time before burying him. They blocked the whole area and they prevented almost most of the Auda beloved friends to attend to his funeral. And this settler is still free, is still coming with his own bulldozer, digging next to Auda's home, where Auda's children are living, where Auda's brother's family is living, where I live. And to leave a criminal like this with impunity around us with his gun is very dangerous. But 13 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of this year by these terrorist settlers across the West Bank. The building of illegal outposts, settlements, it's 24/7, it never stopped. Every day, if you come to Masafir Yatta, you would see settlers building illegal outposts and settlements all day, all night, all holiday. They don't stop for 1 second. And demolitions of our homes, our communities also does not stop by Israeli forces. So anybody can do anything here. Please don't hesitate, and please, we need your stand to stand with us.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, we are truly sorry to hear about your loss. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say that we express our deepest sympathies to Auda's family and friends. And what you describe really raises the issue of accountability and impunity, right? Which I think are the 2 main words that come to mind while watching this movie. And Evan, I want to bring you in on that one. What can we do at the European political level to fight against that impunity?
First and foremost, I also want to say that this was and is a very, very emotional documentary that I think it's the second time I'm seeing it, that each time you see it, you feel it as deeply. And it also reminds me of one thing that I have always brought with me since the first time I visited Palestine. It was back in 2006. I remember the words status quo was used all the time. We need to keep status quo. We need to try to ensure that it's not getting worse. But each time I went there, I realized one thing. There is no status quo. There has never been any status quo as you described them. It's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And in the shadow of the genocide in Gaza, an ethnic cleansing against the Palestinians has taken place in the West Bank also. It means that we need to continue demanding actions from the member states, from the EU Commission. First and foremost, it's already long overdue. We should have frozen the EU-Israeli Association Agreement. In the Article 2 in that association agreement, in Article 2 in that association agreement, it clearly states that no parts, Israel or EU, are allowed to violate international law or democratic principle within the domestic policies or external policies. And it's very, very clear that Israel has for decades violated that article, and that means that the association should have frozen at the minimum a long time ago. Second is weapon embargo. Those who provide the Israeli government with weapons are complicit to the genocide and the ethnic cleansing. There is much more to do in the EU level, but I also tend to become very frustrated when some member states says, well, we don't manage to adopt it on an EU level, but then do it on a national level. There are trade agreements also on national levels that you can freeze. You can also put an end to selling weapons on a national level. So there is quite a lot we can do on a national level as well as on an EU level. And as long as the EU and the EU member states do not do enough, that means we are complicit.
Thank you. And since we are talking about the national level, Kati, I want to ask you what you think we can do to address the situation from your perspective as a Dutch member of parliament.
Well, I think what we saw tonight is how terrorism looks like. This is settler terrorism that's happening. And we are always only using the word terror when it comes to Hamas, etc. This is terrorism, what's happening. And I think what... And I'll come to your question, but also now, you know, we just had a debate today in the Dutch parliament with our prime minister, and I'm happy to see the former prime minister of Palestine coming in tonight. Welcome. And yes, there is perhaps a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's hope the genocide in Gaza, at least for now, has stopped. But there's still ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. There is still occupation. There is still everything we saw in this movie, from humiliation to murder, impunity. And if we don't act, and if we keep looking away, that means we're green lighting this. And that is, of course, Evin and I can very easily agree that it's much more effective if 27 countries in the European Union do something. I mean, obviously. But if that's not possible, then you have the obligation to do it at the national level. And we have been fighting hard, not just from the opposition, but mainly from civil society in the Netherlands, from people just last week here, where we had one of the largest demonstrations with 1.5% of the Dutch population coming to Amsterdam and drawing a red line, telling our government they have to act. What we have now is preparation, national sanctions when it comes to trade with the illegal settlements. Finally, we have at national level sanctioned 2 people, Ben Gvir and Smotrich from the government, at least. I mean, look, it's nothing. They were not planning to visit Amsterdam, okay, for a weekend away, but at least is something. One of the problems here in the Netherlands, not only were we, of course, giving some weapons to Israel, but we continue only last year to buy for €1 billion taxpayers' money weapons that were tested on Palestinian people in a genocide and in an ethnic cleansing, and this is immoral and has to stop.
Thank you. And I think the genocide and ongoing situation in Gaza often diverts people's attention from what is happening in the West Bank. And you were shooting this film between 2019 and autumn 2023, and of course a lot has happened since then. So I wonder if you can tell us about what is unfolding right now, and perhaps particularly the relationship between the settlers and the Israeli army.
I mean, for us Palestinians, there is a lot different between settlers and soldiers, and the majority of Israeli society today it's supporting that, and they voted in their parliament, the opposition and the government, there will never be Palestinian state. So they all work toward this way. What they're saying and discussing in their TV channels and their parliament is there will never be a Palestinian state, and this is what's happening on the ground. For example, over than 1,000 metal gates have been brought and in Palestinians, cities, villages, town, preventing us from moving from village to another, from town, from city to another, from southwest bank to northwest bank. They killed over than 1,000 Palestinians since in the last 2 years, Israeli soldiers and settlers both. And if you want to speak about the closest relationship between soldiers and settlers, many of these settlers you saw in the movie and the major settlers in the West Bank, during this genocide in Gaza, they became former soldiers in our area. For example, the most known violent settler in the outpost that built just 200 meters away from my home became the commander in the Israeli army in our area. So whenever in these past 2 years, any army comes in the area, they change shifts, but he never changed. And he guided them to invade my home in the night. Last night, they just came dozens of soldiers to my village, at Wani, where I live. They tried to break in my door. There's nobody because I'm here. My wife is not at home. They tried to destroy the door and enter inside. They entered in each single home in the village. They abducted about 5 men. They just take them to one home, threatening them. I mean, when they come to destroy our homes, these settlers wear uniform and just guide these soldiers. When they are building in illegal outposts and settlements, you would see soldiers with uniform transferring tents and mattresses, covers for these terrorist settlers and help them establish outposts. In Masafir Yatta, where I live, just in the last 2 years, they built a new 9 illegal outposts in the area, which is crazy. This is a big loss of land, and this is happening across all over the West Bank, in Jordan Valley, in the area near Ramallah. Many Palestinian communities left. About 45 Palestinian villages fled from their homes because of settlers, terrorism, attacks, torturing house, killing people, and torturing cars, attacking people, attacking activists even. In Masafir Yatta, just 2 months ago, the settlers invaded one of the villages wearing masks and sticks. It was all documented. They attacked 2 elderly men, 1 woman, children, including 3 Israeli female solidarity activists who, opposing the occupation, they were there. They were hit on their heads and arms. They got their arms broken, their heads were bleeding. It was on camera, filmed, and none of these settlers is in jail. None of them was arrested for even 1 hour. So this is the reality where we're living, and the gap between what the international community is doing and what's really happening on the ground is so huge, it's so big. Your airports are opened for these settlers, for these soldiers who filmed themselves in TikTok, like blowing up schools and homes in Gaza. These settlers who attacking, who's killing, like the settler that killed my friend Auda can now travel here to Amsterdam and can enjoy vacation and can go back and shoot another Palestinian to death. So even the smallest things the countries here are not doing. So like it's very hard to talk about hope and about the future when this is a reality.
Thank you for sharing that. And what you describe raises broader questions about how the international community can address not only what is happening in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. So, Evan, I want to ask you, what do you think we can do at the political level to stop that illegal occupation? And also, what are the conditions for a peaceful coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians today?
I mean, I think some of the things that could be done on a global level, yes, is what we have mentioned also on an EU level. One thing in EU level is that we have now this mechanism of labeling or prohibiting, sanctioning so-called aggressive settlers, exactly. But it's not being done. Nothing is being done. It's not being imposed to start with. Or to start with, all settlers are illegal, which means that I think that all of them should be sanctioned in one way or the other. The second is, Dr. Shtayyeh, the former prime minister, usually also brings that up, which I think is very important. There are a lot of settlers with dual citizenship, European citizenship also. Nobody is depriving them from their European citizenship, even if their existence in those areas in Palestine, stolen land, is illegal. Why aren't we acting? If it was Russian in Ukraine, we would have acted yesterday, rightfully. But international law is not cherry picking. When we want to apply it, we do. And when we don't want to apply it, we don't. So we need to start be coherent and start applying international law, as well as respecting ICC, ICJ rulings. It means if Netanyahu comes anywhere in the EU member states, his place is where the court says it is, not if the EU member states says we feel like it or don't feel like it. So start respecting international law, no end of cherry picking, and also name the occupation for what it is also. It is an illegal occupation that have taken place for decades and decades and decades, and we continue trading with that occupation as if it's any other force that we are trading with. So put an end also to the trade, especially coming from the occupied areas.
Thank you. Basil, after everything we have discussed, and to conclude this panel discussion, what do you hope the audience takes away from your story tonight?
I mean, take everything that we spoke about, also what they saw in the movie, and again, I would ask people here to act. Like, don't believe like in what was promoted, so-called peace deal. This is not peace. We're happy that the genocide stopped, the killing of the mass killing of people stopped, but the apartheid system is existing from the river to the sea. All Palestinians in Gaza and Jerusalem, in Palestine 48, in the West Bank, facing a very harsh discrimination by the Israeli regime. So people here, politicians, anyone, journalists, any people can do anything in the street, in the government, in the parliament, in the school, in the university, should keep, and now more than ever, fighting with us as Palestinians and for Palestine, for the justice and for the end of the occupation, for the humanity also.
So this seems to be a good time to turn to the audience for a Q&A. We'd love to hear your questions, so please raise your hands and somebody will circulate with a microphone. So I think we'll start with 2 questions, then return to the panelists for their response and go for a second round.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Basel, for creating this documentary. I think it has shown a side of the Palestinian struggle that many people weren't aware of. My question is, how has the documentary changed the political agenda in Israel, and has it changed the Israeli attitude in particular?
No. We'll take a second question, and then we'll come back to the panelists for their responses.
Doet hij het? Als ik ga praten, dan doet hij het. Stand up? Oh, okay. Well, I have one question and I just don't understand. What forces are keeping us from acting? What's going on? So everybody knows what's going on, and somewhere or someone or something is holding us back, and perhaps one of you can illuminate about that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so the movie was done in order to show the audience, to be honest, from my perspective, here in Europe and the US, in the countries where they've been denying the apartheid and the occupation and denying the reality and the truth. So we brought it in front of their eyes to show them what's happening. Also to educate people who does not know how our daily life as Palestinians under this brutal occupation. For the Israelis, like they're living there. They're either settlers, they're either soldiers, and actually it is online, free there. Some activists, Palestinian activists, also Israeli activists, try to show some screens of the movie at universities, at other places. Most of it was blocked. The Israeli culture minister attacked the movie. And for them, to be honest, yes, it's like in their media, like in mainstream media also, they call it like anti-Semitic, it's like propaganda. We made it up in order just to, just to silence us, and I don't think this will change their minds, because they are committing this occupation and these actions. For the second question, unfortunately, I would say my opinion. I've been talking to politicians, to diplomats about the situation, from what holding you from acting, and I'm really sick of hearing people want to tell me that it's because they feel guilty because of the historical of the Jewish here. I mean, there was a system that you brought after World War II to protect humanity and to prevent wars and to prevent genocides. But if you want to use your guilt as an excuse for Israel to commit a genocide, to commit apartheid, then other nations, I think, also can use other excuses to violate this system and this international law, and why it should exist. If it's for people, not for everybody. If it's for certain people, not for everybody around the world. And we don't have anything to do with your guilt.
If I could just add something perhaps next to what Basil said, because I think you're right in this. But I think you see the practice of dehumanization. This last week, we saw families on both sides in Israel and Palestine welcome their loved ones after being taken hostage. But the names that were on our 8 o'clock news were only the names of the Israeli hostages, right? We don't know of the, I think, 1,718 Palestinians who were taken in the last 2 years from Gaza to torture camps. I mean, if you listen to what was happening there, these were torture camps. I bet none of us can name a single name of those people there. And probably a lot of us can name the Israeli hostages. I also, to be honest, I'm also fed up with presenting everything like either you're pro-Palestinian or you're pro-Israeli. No, I'm a person with a heart. I'm a person with a heart who believes in the rule of law for everyone. And perhaps finally, here in the parliament, in the Dutch parliament, unfortunately, you know, we have a majority. We're going to change that majority in 2 weeks with elections here. But we have a majority, you know, we have parties who don't think this is occupied land. We have several parties who think this is the great Israel. There is no occupation. While this is the country where we are hosting the International Court for Justice, the International Court, you know, a criminal court, where there is an arrest warrant against Prime Minister Netanyahu for crimes against humanity, and we still have political parties in this country thinking that this is not occupation. This is occupation, this is terrorism.
Thank you. I think we'll take 2 last questions, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Thank you very much for showing this documentary. I don't know whether it is possible, but if it is possible, why not show this to each and every parliament within the EU and the EU Parliament? Don't make any introduction, no commentary. Let them see it 1.5 hours. Go to their beautiful beds, rest, look at the ceiling and reflect. If I may add some commentary, for those of us who may not know, when the British mandate was declared in 1922 to hasten the process to create a Jewish state, people like David Ben-Gurion, Yitzhak Shamir, and others were terrorists. They resorted to terrorism to hasten the process to create a Jewish state. So, Kathy, you refer to terrorism of Hamas and this film. This is terrorism. Like Shamir and Gurion did in 1920-1923, this is typical terrorism. Please stop the genocide. Let us come together. It is going on every Thursday in many places. Stop the genocide. Thank you very much.
I think there's a question over there.
Yes, we are here as socialists and progressive and Democrats. We saw Tony Blair in this movie. That was a strong image. I think he's a special, I don't know what its function will be for the future, but my question to Basil, thanks for the very impressive movie. Is there any hope that he might change that hatred from both sides? I would stress it from both sides, which makes me really pessimistic. But maybe you are in the front. Is there any hope he can or might change something for the better for your people?
First of all, I want to clarify that mentioning Tony Blair's story in my movie, it's not about him personally. He's a person complicit, like in the war against the Iraqi people, and complicit in murdering people in Iraq. And mentioning his story in our movie to show that when Europeans want to use their power to force Israel to respect the international law and to do something, they can do it. The only thing that's happening now, they don't want to do it and they are not interested in doing it. We as Palestinians don't need somebody from here, a white person, to come and to govern us. We have our own leadership and we can govern our own country. Your work is to sanction the occupation, the apartheid, and to force it to end. And you have the power to do it.
I fully agree that that's our job. I just want to reply just on the question, previous question on why no actions are being taken. I would say it's because of hypocrisy and it's because of double standards. And what Bassel said was very important. We should not forget why international law and the multilateral system as we know them today were put in place. They were done after the Second World War because we said then, or they said then, what happened then should never, ever repeat and happen to anyone. Not towards the Jewish people or any other group. Because as Bassel said, there is no international law, as far as I know, and I guess everybody in here, for Israel. And then international law, a certain international law for the rest of the world. There is only one international law. And the question is if we're going to uphold it or not. Because right now that international law is actually under attack every single day. Every single time we do not respect it and implement it, it's being weakened. And the genocide in Gaza and the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank and the occupation, decades of occupation of Palestine is a concrete example of that we are on a dangerous path. But together, we can change that. That's why we need to continue being loud. And that's also why I get sometimes very frustrated of my colleagues on the center-right side and the far-right. I'm not even going to go there. But on the center-right side, they made international law when it comes to Israel and Palestine to a left or right issue. It's not left or right. It's not about being pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. It's about being pro one thing, and that's international law. And if we are pro-international law, then of course we need to be against occupation, regardless of if the occupying power's name is Russia or Israel.